So I'm a voiceover guy. Why then am I talking about a piece of podcasting gear? And what the hell does Alton Brown have to do with it?
Truthfully, America, it's your fault.
Stick around to find out.
Attention! Stand at ease!
How you doing, everybody? Andrew Scott, and you are back at Boothcamp. Now, this is going to be a shorter video than you might suspect, even though I've got a new toy that I'm going to be showing you here. Now, as I said in the opener, I'm primarily a voiceover guy. More fairly, I'm a content creator, and I do all sorts of things for my clients, everything from simple voiceovers all the way up to big fancy video productions and all that business. And there are circumstances where a particular technological tool is really the only thing you need. Now, very famously, Alton Brown, the Food Network TV guy, often admonishes people for buying kitchen gadgets, which he often refers to as unitaskers, like this.
For years, I have railed against the use and manufacture of what I call unitaskers, and that is devices that are basically created for one job and one job only.
Okay, a little bit of background on me. One of the other things that I did in my life was I was a professional line cook, and I ran a kitchen for a number of years. And I can generally get behind what Alton's saying here. Things that only do one thing really take up a lot of space in a kitchen, okay? Anything from, the goofy breakfast sandwich makers to Slurpee machines and all that other stuff. But when it comes to technology and tools, there are times where having the one thing that does only one thing, but does it perfectly and excellently is important. But we're moving into an age where many things can do more than one function. And there are times where that's an appropriate approach here in voiceover. Now, a lot of this has to do with your VO path and, the niche you're trying to get into and the places where you're trying to work. If you want to do VO exclusively, just climb in a booth, knock out some recordings, send them off to clients. Really, all you need is a good mic, a decent interface, a computer, and an isolated space. Those four things. You've heard me bang on and on about that all the time. Not surprising. Now, my overall approach is I like things that serve multiple purposes or can help me get things done in a way that doesn't take up so much space just for one thing. I mean, I don't have a dedicated computer for my mixing. My computer does many things. It does my audio mixing and engineering, it does my video production, and on and on. And I have a lot of different mics. I mean, this room is, filled with microphones. I don't have one mic to rule them all. I don't even know that such a thing exists, although you could make an argument. But, for example, in this video up here, I talk about my Lewitt 441 Flex, which is a great microphone, and I'm using that thing daily. Part of the reason why I like it so much is because it's a switchable pattern microphone. It can be a wide cardioid, it can be a tight cardioid or super cardioid. It can be a figure eight, omnidirectional type of microphone. I like that flexibility. And what do you know? They built the word flexibility right into the name. And when it comes to voiceover and you're starting out, you're going to be overwhelmed with the amount of choice you have, especially if you don't have any gear right now. You're going to be wondering what to buy. What do I, oh my gosh, this thing and that bleeps and that goes tweet. And, it's overwhelming. There's no question that it's overwhelming. And it's especially overwhelming if you don't know what you want to be when you grow up. I mean, are you going to be doing exclusively VO? Or do you envision yourself at some point in the future maybe branching out and doing things like YouTube videos, of yourself, like me, or other kinds of content creation as a service, podcast editing, podcast recording, podcast production, those kinds of things. Now, don't get me wrong. There are times where one device is the thing you need. There are times where one device needs to do just one thing absolutely perfectly. I've got microphones like that. There are numerous mics that I have that do multiple things or can be used in different environments or for different applications. But, for example, my primary mic for my booth is my TLM 102 by Neumann, very famous microphone. I've got that mic because the one thing that it's tasked to do, record my voice, it does excellently. And so in that way, it's a unitasker. And look, all respect to Alton Brown. But just like that microphone does that one thing perfectly, I'm pretty sure Alton Brown's got one knife that he uses as his go-to knife. Sometimes unitaskers are okay. But a lot of times, having something that does multiple things or serves multiple purposes can really be a benefit, especially if it helps you get past certain impediments that might not be in other people's way. And this brings us to the question of voiceover production and my new toy. For the last 3 years, I've used as my primary interface at my desk here a RODECASTER deck. Now, for those of you who are unaware, RODECASTER is unsurprisingly made by Rode, the makers of the very famous NT1 and NT1A microphones, among many others. Rode's a great Australian company. Hey mates, everybody in Australia, thank you, hope you're doing well. I first bought that RODECASTER back in 2019 because one of the things that I wanted to offer as a business service was remote podcast production. Rock up into somebody's office, set up the gear, and record their podcast for them so they have to own nothing, and all the recording and editing falls to me that I can then charge as a service. And then the pandemic hit. But I decided to start using that RODECASTER as an analog to digital converter, also known as a recording interface, because it presented me with some real significant options that I didn't realize I could benefit from until I started messing around with it. And for as good as the RODECASTER has taken care of me over the last 2.5 years, and it definitely has, the new RODECASTER Mark II does an even better job. But this is all down to use case. So, what are some of these use cases? Why would something like a RODECASTER deck, made primarily for podcasting, benefit you as a voice talent? Let's take a look. Okay, number 1, preamps. Now, I'm sure you've heard me or other people in the voiceover community talk about the importance of your preamps when it comes to recording your voice. If you've got to spend money outside of your microphone, as far as tech goes on anything, it's getting excellent, high-quality preamps. Quiet preamps. The original RODECASTER had really good preamps. They weren't fabulous preamps. I would actually hazard to say that the preamps in a Scarlett Solo or a 2i2 or something like that were probably a little bit better, but they were good preamps. They were generally quiet. The RODECASTER Mark II, these preamps are ridiculous. So the preamps in the RODECASTER Mark II deck are made by Revolution, and they are excellent. You're talking about preamps that have self-noise that are around about negative 131 dBV. And here, go look it up. But that's quiet. This makes good mics sound excellent. So let's talk a little bit about use case. Obviously, if you're doing voiceover, you're primarily recording your own voice. But what would a use case be for something like a voice talent having a RODECASTER deck? Okay, number one of the big trends right now in audio entertainment and podcasting are audio dramas. And I'm sure that a lot of you out there have actually maybe even participated in these things. Have you ever thought about doing your own, producing your own, writing and recording your own? Now, I'm living proof that you can do a lot of work remotely. You know, I've done audio dramas over the past couple of years where all the participants were recorded remotely on some, remote platform like Zoom. But nothing beats people being together and acting against each other. If everybody's vax and boosted, you can gather together people and record an entire take where people are interacting with each other in real time at once, because you can plug 4 microphones into a RODECASTER deck. And another big benefit of that is RODECASTERs can function in a multi-track mode. That means everybody's microphone is isolated from each other to one degree or another. Obviously, if they're all in the same room, you're going to get some bleed. But you're going to be able to run post on each one of those vocal tracks separately. So if somebody's very sibilant, you can put a de-esser on them. Or if somebody's very boomy, you can put a high-pass filter on. And everything, you can literally just drag the entire project into a DAW of choice, dump it in there, and boom, boom, boom. All the tracks that you've recorded are laid out and they're synchronized with each other. That can be a big benefit to production like that. So obviously, one of the big benefits of using a device like this is it removes the need for having an analog to digital converter. This is already a direct inbox. But an even greater benefit is that this isn't just one ADC. This is 4 ADCs. So go look up a really high quality ADC or interface and see how much it costs to get one that's got four inputs. Yeah, that price starts going up because you're paying for 4 preamps. And it's not uncommon for some that have, 4 inputs for microphones to really get up there in price, especially if you need really good preamps. So a RODECASTER deck acts as an interface, but not just an interface. If you're old school like me and you spent your time in your misspent youth doing a lot of home studio recording, you got used to the tactile control that is afforded by a mixing deck, even a small one. It's nice to be able to adjust levels on the fly like that. And people like me, we still love getting our hands on the deck. A RODECASTER can act as a DAW control surface. So you have the ability to use this device to control your DAW in real time. So now here's something else to consider. And this is no judgment on anybody. A lot of people get very overwhelmed when they're starting to work in their DAW and all the signal chain processing, compressors and multipressors and spectral analyzers and noise reducers and noise gates and plosive reducers, on and on and on. And they just can't mentally grok. They can't look at that DAW and figure out how to get a good sound. Now, obviously, that's something that you would have to work towards in order to really be an effective engineer when it comes to high quality audio. But there is something that might potentially make this easier on you, at least in the short term while you're perfecting your skills when it comes to your DAW. A RODECASTER has something that the industry refers to as DSP, which is digital signal processing, which means that you have a compressor on this deck built in to each channel. You have noise reduction. You have high-pass filters and low-pass filters and aural exciters and a number of other very commonly used effects in post that you could use while recording. The key is get your sound dialed in exactly the way you know you want it to be on the end product, minus a few maybe EQ tweaks here and there. Because when you're doing it this way, in this use case, you're going to be recording all the effects, all the compression, all the de-essing, things like that. So this is a little bit like, you've got to know what color you want because you're not going to be able to unmix paint. But I often do this, and I know people in the voiceover community are going to scream bloody murder at me. Tough. It's my business, not your business. When I've got things dialed in, especially for something like long-form narration, I want that work done before it hits my DAW. With my DAW, I just want to do editing for pacing and cutting out obvious noises that I don't want to be there. So in my booth, I run an ART voice channel. It's a tube preamp. So I'm already recording something that's gone through an amplifier and a compressor and a de-esser and a noise reducer. Same thing with people who like to use something like a DBX 286S, which is a great unit for noise reduction. I absolutely love it and I miss mine. But this is a great way to provide consistency in your production. Everything, once you've got the sound dialed in the way you want, everything you record is going to sound like that. And there's no extra twiddling that you have to do here and there. And there's no extra learning. You can start recording an audiobook immediately with reasonably professional results baked in. So here's another use case, and this is a very common one in home voiceover. You've found yourself a closet, right? You've got it sound deadened on the inside, but the computer that you're using has a really loud fan, and you'd love to not have it in the booth with you, making that noise while you're trying to record your precious clean signal. A RODECASTER is silent. So you can run a USB cable out to your computer, which is off in the distance, and still have tactile control over things like level and the ability to hear yourself properly, direct monitoring in your ears. And it generates no heat, and it's a very small profile. I mean, here you'll see a picture where I show you the difference in size between the new RODECASTER Mark II and the OG RODECASTER. It's about 15 to 20% smaller. You could easily take this into a closet with you. I mean, it's not meant for portability, but it certainly is no heavy lift to carry it into a closet and get it set up on a little tea table. So here's the last little bit of consideration for you. Again, let's stay with the closet model. Let's say you don't want to have to run a cable, or for some reason you can't. This is a recording device. You can record in 44.1 or 48 kilohertz directly to this device onto a micro SD card. And when you're done with your session, you can pop that card out, go out to your computer, pop it in, import your files, and Bob's your uncle. That can be really helpful for people, especially people recording in environments or in settings where it's less than optimal. If you've got a family and you're trying to become a voice actor, running cables everywhere might not be an option for you. You just might not have that level of real estate. But you probably have the ability to pick this thing up off the table, take it into the closet with you, do your work, come back out, pop the card, and set down to editing. Now, obviously, this isn't going to be a solution for everyone. It's not all things to all people. Nothing is. But using a device like a RODECASTER, and to be fair, there are other devices that do similar things, like the old Zoom R8 little miniature deck, which is even a smaller profile, and I actually did an audiobook with that thing. It essentially does the same thing, but the main difference is, and full disclosure, I bought this deck myself. Rode did not send it to me. They have no consideration from me. I give them no consideration. This is my property, and I'm talking about it. But without question, this is an excellent device. It is an excellent device that provides you with future flexibility. You want to start recording podcasts? You can do 4 channels right here, plus additional audio input, things like sound from your computer, the smart banks on these things where you can trigger sounds. Those can be used to good effect in podcasting. And there are so many changes. Again, this isn't really a review of the RODECASTER Mark II. There are other reviews. I will try to put a link down to some of my favorite YouTubers and the work that they've done with the new RODECASTER. The ability to be flexible at times is really useful. Again, all respect to the UNITASKERS of the world who do that one thing they're tasked with excellently. I gotta say, the RODECASTER Mark II as a multitasker is really hard to beat. You could easily spend the MSRP on this device and get a lot less for your money with a lot less flexibility by buying things that will accomplish the task this can separately. So if you're starting out in VO or you're planning on it, and you know that you've got some environmental issues and you have bigger ideas in your mind aside from maybe just narration or just voiceover work, this is really something to consider. But until next time, everybody, I'm Andrew Scott. You've been at Boothcamp. See you later, everybody. Bye-bye.
You're dismissed.